Hello, hello, hello. How's everyone doing? Another week, another episode. This is Stats Over Politics. Up, there we go. All right, let's redo it. Hello, hello, hello. How's everyone doing? Another week, another episode. This is Stats Over Politics. I'm your host, Shaun Holko, back for another episode, number 184. Shout out to Kevin and Alex for holding it down last week on episode number 183. As I said, we're back for another episode, and we have a returning guest. But before we get to him, I wanted to wish a happy belated birthday to Mr. Kevin James Dent, whose birthday was yesterday. I believe it was 28 and feeling great, right? Or was it 29?
29 and feeling fine.
Hey, there you go. As the teenagers say nowadays, we're pushing 30. And now when it comes to our guest, who is on the podcast for, I believe, the third or fourth time, he's not pushing 30. He already surpassed 30. None other than Mr. Keith Jouganatos. How you doing, Keith?
Well, first of all, I don't like the fact that you did not introduce me properly when I picked the Denver Broncos to win the AFC West in the last time I was on this esteemed established podcast, but you chose to point out the fact that I am 32. Okay, sir, but I'm glad to be here in all seriousness. We got a good show to talk about with the NFL and basketball, but I just wish you would have pointed that out because I received a lot of flack on this podcast for my Denver Broncos pick, but you didn't want to bring that up. Same way you don't want to bring up the Michigan Wolverines basketball team soaring to unprecedented heights this year.
All right, now Keith is getting. Yeah, exactly, Kevin. Keith is now getting to what we were chatting about in our pre-show meeting. Now that we're live, Keith wanted to keep the Michigan-Ohio State banter going back and forth. When I put this hat on today, it didn't even click in my brain that we were having Keith on as a guest. And Keith probably feels that this hat was very intentional. It genuinely wasn't. I was just like, all right, I'm wearing a red shirt. Let's grab something that has red on it. All right, that's the first one I see. But
the Niner hat, the Niner shirt was though. We'll get into that eventually. But the Niner shirt was though.
Yeah, well, I've received a lot of slander for my San Francisco 49ers on this podcast, and we will be talking NFL today as NFL free agency, the legal tampering window opened up, and so we will be getting to that today. But before we get to that, we're going to chat some basketball, and that's why we have Miss Alex Dent with us. Alex, how are you doing today?
I'm alive. I can't complain.
That's good. I'm glad to hear that. And I wasn't able to come on last week's podcast because I just wasn't feeling well after a really long weekend. But during that weekend, when I was covering basketball section championships at Golden One Center for West Coast Preps, my full-time job, I got to see Alex, and I believe that was the first time that I met Alex in person. So that was cool. The reason why I mentioned that is that we took a selfie together to send to the group chat that I was going to display on the screen when I was back on the podcast, but yet I dealt with technical difficulties before today's podcast, not even with technology, but the lack of technology, because basically I left my laptop in my girlfriend's trunk, and now FedEx is overnighting it from the Bay Area. So hallelujah for FedEx. They taxed you, boy, too much money. But when you have a remote job and you rely on a laptop to do your job, you have to bite the bullet and you have to do what you have to do. I'm coming to you all on my iPad today. Grateful to have an iPad. At the end of the day, this is first world problems. And so we're back for another episode. I made it. Shout out to Kevin for picking up the slack in the pre-production of today's episode and for last week as well. And so, guys, let's not waste any more time. Let's get right into it. But
before we get going, for the audio-only listeners, you can't see this, but there's a new addition to the wall, Shaun. Kevin went shopping this weekend, found a Miami Heat 6 LeBron jersey, vintage, for $25, and we have a rookie LeBron James poster in the background. So we're going up. I got another retro LeBron jersey. As everyone knows, I am a huge LeBron James lover. So I was telling Alex for a couple months now that I really want to find a 6 jersey, but they're so hard to find. I was looking on eBay. They were going to charge me an arm and a leg. And Alyssa and I are walking down the street to this vintage store in Portland. First jersey I see, $25, LeBron James. So,
I mean,
that's pretty awesome.
The audio-only listeners got to see the background. They get to hear about the background.
Yeah, that's why I put you on the big screen. Alex, did you want to say something?
Oh, I was just saying LeBron James in the back is a little bent. That's all.
You know, I got a new friend. That's how it came. So I got it off a little bit of a discount. I got to level it. I got to do this. I literally did this before the podcast. So I wanted to make sure that the world can see it. So next Monday, it'll be all nice and good. New frame, we'll be good to go. But I had to make sure I got it on here.
Ridiculous.
Yeah, most definitely. And for the audio only listeners, Keith was giving you 2 thumbs up as you were talking about LeBron James, as Keith would say, GOAT James. And so I know you're a fan of that as well, Keith.
Oh, it's greatness. I think it's amazing. It's fantastic.
Yep. And so before we officially get started and we dive into the topics that we got, the YouTube chat is really active today. And so we appreciate all of you for tuning in. At Capybara says, sup. And again, I'm doing this on my iPad, so I'm like clicking the screen rather than on a mouse pad. So forgive me if there's some technical difficulties along the way. Charlie Columbus says, I picked the Seahawks to win the Super Bowl. Okay, well, shout out to you, Charlie. I guess he had to one-up you, Keith, with your Broncos AFC West pick. But kudos to you, Keith. We did talk about it. Primarily, Jaevon gave you your credit when it came to your pick, because as the season was going along, Toddy said, well, you know, Keith said in the preseason, and look at it now. And so you nailed that. And shout out to Grey Wolf for always tuning in, saying, sweet baby Jesus, say it ain't so. And good evening, peeps. How's everyone doing? We're doing well, Grey Wolf, and we hope you are too. And also, shout out to Uncle Manny, as he says, Alex is the most informative dent. The other guy is old, as Uncle Manny stays roasting Kevin with that Cowboys and Eagles rivalry. And Grey Wolf says in the YouTube comments as well, NFL free agency is going crazy. We're going to get to that today. But before we do, we're going to get to some NBA news, because Toddy and Alex's favorite team, their best player, arguably, came back this past week from a devastating Achilles tear that he suffered in the second round of the NBA playoffs last year. I believe it's been 10 months that he's already back now. And his first game back didn't look great. There were a lot of things that you could clip from that game that if someone wants to be a hater of Jayson Tatum, then they'll show him airballing a 3 or what have you. But from my perspective, I'll just briefly say that for him to get back in the timeline that he did, but then also to come back before the regular season ended so he can try and gel and build chemistry with this year's Celtics roster, it's really important. And also, the last thing I'll say in that regard before I pass it around the panel to get their reaction about Jayson Tatum returning from Achilles tear is that Tatum started practicing and he started doing 5-on-5s in practice. Like the thing that we see a lot in the NBA particularly is if you have a player coming back with from such a devastating injury, a lot of times they're practicing with the G League players to try and ramp up and get that 5-on-5 contact and speed. But I feel like Jayson Tatum probably came back a little earlier than he even could have, because he wanted to get that real deal live NBA action. And it may come with the growing pains of making some mistakes or having some plays that may look like stinkers, but ultimately he should be commended for coming back. NBC and Peacock, they chronicled his journey with a bit of a documentary that they've been showing throughout the season on Monday, Tuesday, and Sunday Night Basketball. And Tatum was worried about if he was ever going to come back. And then when he was sure that he was going to come back, he told his doctor, I'm not coming back to be a role player. So how does that impact Jaylen Brown and his MVP candidacy for this season? There's so many questions, but ultimately Jayson Tatum is back, and that is good for basketball. Alex, as a diehard Celtics fan, what was your reaction to his return? And just how are you feeling about his addition to this Celtics team as you look ahead to the playoffs?
I think it's great. I don't think adding Jayson Tatum makes this team worse. I think it just makes this team better. It's not like he has never played with the Boston Celtics or played with Jaylen Brown or Derek White or Pritchard. You know what I mean? And so I think that obviously some rust got to get off. And there's about, 20-ish games left in the season. So I think he's ramping up for the playoffs, right? I think this only helps Jaylen Brown and his shot selections, because now they can't double team him. And now he isn't the focal point for a lot of these defenses because you have a Jayson Tatum in the corner waiting for the ball. You know what I mean? And what I think is so interesting about Jayson Tatum coming back, I think he'll be in top shape form. Like, I don't think he's coming back and not going to be the player that he was. I'm just waiting for when that will actually happen because I'm actually really interested in. I feel like because he did this in 10 months, we always look at this Achilles as like a year plus, right? We always look towards Kevin Durant, I feel like is the best example, who tore his Achilles and came back and was the same or even a better player than he was prior to the injury. And so, but he took a year plus, like a year and a half off. And so if Jayson Tatum could come back in 10 months and be the player that he was before in this playoffs, I wonder how we're actually going to go forward with these Achilles injuries, just in the scope of basketball and even other sports as well. Because if you could come back within a year and still be the same player, obviously there's other factors and variables that you have to kind of add into that equation. Like I know Jayson Tatum got his surgery like the day of, like hours after he tore it. And maybe that is a part of the quick recovery process. I'm not sure. So I think it's interesting how we're going to see Achilles injuries in the future with Jayson Tatum, but I'm excited to see him play. There's 2 games this week. I think they play the Spurs tomorrow, and I think they play OKC later this week. And I think that's going to be a real good like test for him to see kind of how he can go up against these really good defenses, rather than they played, I think, the Mavericks, and I think they played Cleveland. So, yeah.
You're muted, Shaun.
Thank you. I appreciate it, Kevin. I didn't even realize that I muted myself. And this is the trials and tribulations that I was alluding to with operating the show on my iPad for the first time. But, you know, the mute gets the best of all of us sometimes. What I was saying while I was muted is, Keith, we are long-suffering Sacramento Kings fans just like Kevin. And so to have a player like Jayson Tatum, I mean, one could say that the Kings had a pretty similar player in a De'Aaron Fox. Nevertheless, I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole. Overall, Keith, you are a big NBA fan. You know basketball. And so what is your reaction to arguably a top 5, top 10 player in the NBA when healthy returning to this Celtics team that won a title a couple of years ago?
Well, number one, it's a win for the league. Any professional sports league, you never want your best players not playing, right? And so I think in the case of Jayson Tatum, who has obviously been, since he's been in the league, one of the most marketable players, one of the most, attention-grabbing players, it's a win-win for the league. It was a win for the Boston Celtics because they had to figure out life for 9-10 plus months without Jayson Tatum. So you're Joe Mazzulla, and you're like, how do we adjust now? Can Jaylen Brown be the number one option? What do we do with the role players? And it also allowed guys like Peyton Pritchard and Yusuf Nurkic, who obviously that's a big blow with the thumb. I thought getting Nurkic at the end of the deadline was a key grab for them, but now he's going to be out for a couple of weeks, which is, you know, it's a hinder for the Celtics. But it forced the Boston Celtics for the first time since he was drafted to look at life without Jayson Tatum. But it also allowed them to see, you know, we can survive this. And so you got to give the Boston Celtics credit in the concept of that they lost arguably their 1A, and you can have the debate who's more important. I mean, they like to throw that in your face constantly on national TV. But kudos to Jaylen Brown for stepping up. Kudos to Joe Mazzulla and the Celtics for figuring out how to stay in the hunt, right? Because the thought was at the beginning of the season, well, if there's no Jayson Tatum, the Celtics are a borderline 8-9, maybe play-in team without him. And they're one of the 2-3 seeds in the East with him playing only like one game or a couple of games so far. But I also thought it was a big win for Jayson Tatum because Jayson Tatum's entire life has revolved around basketball since the time he was probably like 8 or 9 years old. And you are without the sport. You can't do anything on the court. You have to really trust your body. And like Alex hinted to, the fact that he was able to come back at 10 months, let alone less than a year. And a lot of people could look at it and say, well, that wasn't really a promising Jayson Tatum game the first time. I disagree. He almost had a triple-double. And the thing, Shaun, that I enjoyed about watching the highlights was that everything you'd want to see from an Achilles tear post-rehab, post-recovery, he did. He caught a lob from Jaylen Brown. He dunked it as the game went on. He got more comfortable. He was able to cut. He was driving to the basket. He was knocking down the J, and there were no problems. They never had to take him out. Obviously, they're going to have to watch how many minutes he's restricted on. I don't know how Missoula is going to kind of orchestrate that, but like I touched on it, the good thing is, obviously, we've got about 18 or 19 games left before the postseason gets into effect. But the good thing is the Celtics have learned to survive without Jayson Tatum. But I also do think as you see the back end of the season wrap up, they're going to get him more involved, extra amount of minutes. And, you know, obviously there are no moral victories in professional sports, right? But this has to be a win because they're going to have to elevate him eventually. Because if you're going to compete for a championship, you're going to have to get through New York. You're going to have to get through Detroit. And those are two teams. Obviously, the Knicks are more of a finesse team, but the Pistons especially have established themselves as a physical team. You see what they did with Wembanyama a couple weeks ago. So they're going to try to bump him. They're going to try to knock him off his perch. But I think this was a win for the NBA. They got one of their premier stars back. And it was a win for Jayson Tatum. And I'll leave on this. I thought Tatum could come back from the injury not 100%, but 95%, because he's not been one of these guys where the athleticism really has been a huge part of his game. He relies on the mid-range, the three. He thrives off the pick and roll, but he can still elevate for the dunk. But he's never been one of these high-octane, play above the rim kind of guys. He's more like a Grant. I always saw him as a Grant Hill, where he can get in the mid-range, he can dunk it, he can run the floor, but he's never really had to utilize or rely on the athleticism the way other players we've seen in the past. And you never want to see somebody injured, but it was great that he got this out of the way early. And again, he hasn't really been injured his entire career. This is the first major injury. So congrats to Jayson Tatum for getting back in record time. And great news for the Celtics. Horrible news for the New York Knicks fans and the Detroit Pistons fans.
Yikes.
Certainly. And thank you for pointing out the fact that he nearly had a triple-double in his return, because shows how I was a casual this past week. And to be fair, like, I was covering a high school playoff game like during the time, so I wasn't able to watch the game. But all I saw was the lowlights. Like, there's Brick Setter on Twitter, and you know, like I said, and it kind of just reemphasizes the point that Adam Silver was saying about modern day NBA is a highlight league. And it's really unfortunate. It's a highlight and it's a low light league. And so even though Jayson Tatum had overall, like, for just coming back from an Achilles tear, he had a pretty damn good game. There's going to be the trolls always highlighting like the bad things. And so thank you for pointing that out, Keith. Kevin, what was your reaction to seeing Jayson Tatum make his return?
Well, in your defense, Shaun, Alex, don't quote me on this. I think he started like 0 for 7, 0 for 8. Yeah. So he did start off very, very bad. And his first points came from that tip dunk. But we've talked to you guys, Alex and Shaun and Keith. You guys did a lot of great jobs talking about past injuries. I have some dates here. So Kobe Bryant in April 2013 took 240 days to recover. Chauncey Billups in 2012 took 296 days till his first game. DeMarcus Cousins, January of 2018, 357 days. Kevin Durant, June of 2019, took 552 days. Jayson Tatum took 298 days. So he came back at a record time. I mean, the only one else who did it was Kobe. And when Kobe did it, it was amazing, because I know don't quote me on this, I know he went overseas to get his surgery. And just the recovery that Kobe had, it just came back, and he was so efficient and just being Kobe Bryant. And Keith said it best. You know, we see guys like, perfect example, Derrick Rose. Well, if a guy that solely relies on their athleticism, an injury like this will take him out, because now your game's not so much above the rim. It's not so much speed, but if you have a game like a Jayson Tatum or Kobe Bryant, where you can live off the mid-range, come off the pick and roll, like Keith explained it to a T. So a player like Jayson Tatum is going to recover quickly. My biggest thing was, how does this team fit? Because, yes, I get it. He played with this team last year, but this team last year isn't this team. Last year, Peyton Pritchard was a 6-man. This year, he's a starting point guard. You know, Jaylen Brown and Jayson Tatum were going, who's 1A, 1B. This year, it's been Jaylen Brown's team. So, like Alex said, now his game gets to kind of flourish, because it's been Jaylen Brown. Now he doesn't have to have that kind of game. So they have new guys like Vooch, but they have a lot of guys stepping up. I know Shaun, Keith, and I are going to hate this, but Namitas Nikita is balling. I'm talking about double every night, and we couldn't get him out of Stockton. Like they're having guys. The other rookie they got, they're drafting a lot of guys, and they are becoming a team where when you get into that second apron, you really have to develop talent. And Hugo Gonzalez has been balling. Like they're getting contributions from guys that we wouldn't even expect, and their contribution doesn't have to be in the points. It doesn't have to be in the rebounds, but just the hustle plays, because they understand that they have a guy that's worth $300 million. We don't need to shoot the ball. We're going to get in here and we're going to do what we can. So the biggest thing that I worried about was how it was all going to fit. Granted, they did play the Mavericks and the Cavs. The Cavs game was a huge game for Jayson Tatum to come back and play against a team. He is on a 27 minutes per game restriction. So obviously in the playoffs, he's probably going to play 37 out of 40. So it's going to be interesting to kind of see how they all come back together. But out of 2 games, man, he's looked great. This team, like Keith said, we all picture this team in to get a lottery pick, if not be a playing team. And Joe Mazzulla, at the beginning of the year, he said, fuck a tank. Like, that's not what we're doing. They don't pay me this money to sit here and lose games. So this Celtics team is going to be very, very scary. Can they go all the way? I guess we'll just have to wait and see Jayson Tatum get ramped up. But out of these 2 games, very competitive, getting a lot of shots up, and they were able to beat the Cavs by 1. And if they want to get back to the finals, the Cavs are the team that they're going to have to go through.
Certainly. And I'm really glad that you mentioned those numbers, Kevin. Those were great stats that really lived up to the name of this podcast. But also, as I was hearing you list those numbers off, all I could think is Jayson Tatum is a fucking dog. Like, he is that dude to come back in the amount of time that he did. And the other thing that you mentioned that made my ears perk up, Kevin, is just talking about the teams that they played, one of them being the Cavs. Keith mentioned the New York Knicks, the Detroit Pistons may not be happy. To me, the Cavs are the other team in that discussion. The Cavs are sneaky. Keith is shaking his head no, but the Cavs have looked legit with James Harden. I know that there's a stigma against James Harden, and maybe it will only last so long. Keith, you're muted, so I don't know what you're saying, but
fall for it.
Don't fall for it.
To yourself. You're going to talk yourself into James Harden being the catalyst that gets the Cavs in the finals. Don't do this now. Don't do this my first time back in the podcast.
Okay. How about the Keon Ellis led Cleveland
Cavaliers?
Hell. I get behind that.
All right. Well, overall point being, I think the Cavs are going to be contenders this year, because we think back to last year where the Cavs were the 1 seed, they were the favorites, and then they got taken out by Halliburton and the Pacers. And so those are the 4 teams that I'm looking at in the East. I think the NBA champion will come out of the Western Conference this year, kind of similar to what we were looking at in the NFL, where it's like, okay, the NFC championship, that was the Super Bowl, because whoever made it out of the NFC was going to beat whoever came out of the AFC. I feel that's the case for the NBA this year. But for those 4 teams coming out of the East, I'm throwing the Cavs in that discussion. And now with Jayson Tatum officially back, it's not a rumor, he is back, I'm throwing the Celtics in that conversation. For me, I think the Celtics will make it to the semifinals again and lose. That's my prediction for a Jayson Tatum-led Celtics team, or even a Jaylen Brown-led Celtics team featuring Jayson Tatum. Maybe the dynamic is flipped. Everyone was talking about during that finals run when Jaylen Brown got finals MVP, and Kevin loved to troll Toddy on who's the Batman, who's the Robin. Well, I feel like based on how Jaylen Brown has played this season and the fact that Jayson Tatum is just trying to get himself back into the swing of things, back to being exactly who Jayson Tatum is, that you could probably definitively say for this season, Jaylen Brown is the Batman, Jayson Tatum should be the Robin. That's at least my opinion. But I feel like with that dynamic, the Celtics, and give credit where it's due, New York has looked good, except for that one bad stretch that they had that included them losing in Sacramento. New York's been pretty solid this year. Detroit has been great. Cade Cunningham is my MVP right now. I know that you guys talked about it a little bit last week. Cade is my MVP right now, and he would be the first American-born MVP since James Harden, if my memory serves correctly. And so I'm a big believer in the Pistons and what they're doing this year. Everyone always talks about Cade, but it's like Jalen Duren, he has been nice. First-time All-Star this year. And so I'm a big believer in Detroit, and I feel like someone will take out the Celtics in the semifinals. Before we move on to NFL topics, I wanted to go around the panel because similarly to the first time that we had Keith on the podcast, which was back in August, and that was when Aaron Rodgers signed with the Steelers, and we went around the panel just on what the likelihood of the Steelers season would be with that addition. Obviously, we knew that Jayson Tatum was a member of the Celtics. We just didn't know when he would come back. So my prediction is that the Celtics get to the semifinals.
Yeah, I'm happy you said that. You teed it up perfectly, Shaun, and I'm going to throw it right back to you. Factor cap. With Jayson Tatum returning, will the Celtics win it all?
Well, shoot, I was looking at the topics earlier, and that just completely slipped my mind as I was going on that soliloquy. But to me, this is cap. The Celtics aren't even going to win the East. They're not even going to get to the Eastern Conference Finals. The Celtics are going to make it to the semifinals. To me, this year's Celtics team, their ceiling is the Eastern Conference Finals. I feel like the most likely scenario is that they make it to the semifinals and they get eliminated at that point. But Keith is scratching his head. Alex is looking around for answers.
Yeah, I don't know who to go to next. I think we got to go Keith. We'll save the Celtics fan for last. So, Keith, factor cap. With Jayson Tatum returning, the Celtics will win it all this year.
Okay. I don't think they can win it all. I think the timetable, respectively, is too much. With the injury, he's doing good work. I have them maxing out in the conference finals. But, Mr. Hoko, like, if the Celtics don't make the conference finals in your world, then that would imply that 3 teams are fighting it out for the conference finals. The Pistons, the Knicks, and the Cavaliers. And I know you're not about to put the Cleveland Cavaliers in the Eastern Conference Finals with Donovan Mitchell and James Harden leading that team.
I am taking the James Harden, Keon Ellis led Cavaliers over this year's Celtics team. I think all 4 of those teams are who are playing in the semifinals, but as far as who is going to, and like I said, I feel like the Celtics ceiling for this season, like the furthest that they could go, is the conference finals. But what I'm saying is my prediction is that they will get eliminated in the semifinals by the Detroit Pistons.
I'll say this. I'm going to land my plane. I'll let Alex give her prediction here. I think the East has the most talent out of all the conferences, both conferences. But I think the Eastern Conference is going to run the risk of running itself into the ground before they get a chance to play like a San Antonio or an Oklahoma City. And that's going to bode well for the Western Conference because that conference between Detroit, New York, Cleveland, and Boston, that's probably the top 4 in all retrospective. In perspective, the top 4. I think they're just going to run – all of them are going to run themselves into the ground. I would bet money on the field in the West opposed to the East to win it all.
Perfect, Alex. So I'm going to swing it to you next. But first, we have some Instagram comments that I want you to get at as the Celtic fan. So our good friend Ephraim said the Celtics do not have a true big. And the Cavs have more of a chance to win than the Celtics. So, Alex, being the Celtics
speak
fan,
on it, Ephraim.
Fact or cap? With Jayson Tatum returning, the Boston Celtics will win it all.
It's definitely cap. I think, like everyone has stated, the winner of the National Basketball Association is coming out the West. I think we could all agree with that. So, but do I think the Celtics could make it to the finals? Yes. Do I think they can make it to the Eastern Conference Finals? Yes. I think they're the second in the East, I believe, for a reason. And I don't like how the Knicks are kind of like an accidental, they like play good accidentally. Like, you know what I mean? Like how you lose to the Lakers. And Lakers aren't, to me, the Lakers aren't contenders. And how you kind of, It's just they have good moments, but they have really bad moments, and that's just Cat. Like Cat plays like that. Cat can play great, and then Cat could be Cat. So I feel like they are the only real team they have to kind of go through is Detroit, and Detroit is untested. I mean, I could see the Celtics winning that series just because they have more experience than Detroit, just off a rip, right? However, I don't think that is the case, but that is crazy talk. Yes, they don't have a true big, but I mean, in the Eastern Conference, Cat's not even a true big. I think with Kita, I think I said his name right, and Vucevic, which he'll be back in like a month or 6 weeks or something like that, I think they'll be fine. Without a true big. You know what I mean? It's not like they got to go through Philly and they got to go up against Embiid. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think the Sixers are contenders. I think they could get a good maybe game 5, game 6 over the Sixers if they have to play them. So I don't see anything wrong. It is Cap, but they will make it, at least in my opinion, to the finals, if not the conference finals.
And I'll add something real quickly before Kevin gives his opinion on this factor, Cap. But 2 things. Number 1, our guy Jaevon Toddy, who is dealing with some family matters, so he's unable to join us tonight. When Jayson Tatum was announced that he was coming back, Toddy kept saying one word. It was finals, finals, finals. I was like, okay. And the other thing that I will say is that I have loved seeing the emergence of Neemias Queta on the Celtics, because when he left the Kings, I was a little sad, but I was like, okay, you're going to Boston. Like, that could be a real opportunity. And it actually has become a real opportunity for the Celtics this year that have been struggling with injuries and guys coming in and out. And so I've loved seeing the emergence of Neemias Queta. And although I think that Detroit is a lock for the Eastern Conference Finals, it would be pretty cool if it ended up being Boston versus Cleveland, because then you get Neemias Queta versus Keon Ellis. Always has to have a Sacramento angle for us here in Purgatory. But you get Neemias Queta versus Keon Ellis, 2 guys who signed 2-way contracts and were second-round picks for the Sacramento Kings that got developed in Stockton, and now they could be contributing role players on 2 Eastern Conference finalists. I mean, we're pulling for straws over here in California's capital, and so that would make me happy. But Kevin, go ahead, and I'll present this to you, Kevin, just since you're answering the question. Kevin, factor Cap, with Jayson Tatum returning, the Celtics will win it all?
So we have another Instagram comment. Toddy said, or Shaun, or Ephraim says, Toddy is politics over stats. Shaking my head, talking about the finals. I'm going to say this is a fact. They can do it. You want to talk stats, Ephraim? Let's talk stats. We all know when it matters most, James Harden doesn't show up. What have we seen out of Detroit Pistons yet in the playoffs when it matters? Nothing. What have we seen out of the Knicks? After they beat the Celtics, all of us said the Knicks are going to the finals, and they couldn't beat Tyrese Halliburton and the Pacers. So when we're talking about just getting out of the East, yes, Jayson Tatum isn't 100%, but he is going to get there. They have the experience. And even with a 75% Jayson Tatum, I don't think we're taking another duo over Jayson Tatum 75% versus the field with the other duos. We're not taking them over Donovan Mitchell and James Harden, because Donovan Mitchell has never made it out of the second round, and James Harden is a generational choker. Jalen Duren, what is he going to be in the playoffs? Cade Cunningham? I mean, I get it. They played the Knicks in the first round. They lost a hell of a game, hell of a series, but they showed their youth. We came on here a couple years ago in 2024 and claimed the Thunder that they were going to be able to do it. And you don't have that experience, you're going to lose to a team like the Mavericks where everyone thinks you can do it. They don't have the experience. The Thunder are going to be limping into the playoffs. Their second best player hasn't been playing. That's Jalen Williams. I get it. Jerry McCain has been great for this team. What is Jerry McCain going to be in the playoffs? Just we're talking about the Thunder's injuries, we got to talk about the Nuggets injuries. So what are they going to look like? We haven't seen Aaron Gordon play since November. So, I mean, there's a lot of things that are going on the other side of the scale that are going to be injuries. And I'm sure what a lot of us think in the back of our head, can the Spurs come out of the West? Because the Spurs, the Thunder, and the Nuggets, one of them are going to have to play each other before they get to the conference finals. So who knows what that's going to be like? So you're telling me, again, the Celtics versus the Thunder, I'm going to take the Celtics. You're telling me Celtics versus the Nuggets? I'm probably going to take the Celtics. The Celtics versus the Spurs, I'm going to take the Celtics. So I get it. You're going to say Jayson Tatum's only been back for 2 games. This has been one of the top defenses in the NBA without Jayson Tatum and one of the top offenses in the NBA without Jayson Tatum. So, Ephraim, you want to talk about stats? I gave you some stats. So, factor cap, can they win it all? I think they're going to. I think but I was one of the people before the season saying tank for AJ, tank for Darren, tank for anything, and restart. You never know. Jayson Tatum did not come back to be a role player. He did not have the second least amount of days to come back from this to do nothing. There's a reason he came back when he did. Because like Alex said, there are 20 more games until the playoffs. This is New England. They don't play for conference championships. They play to hang banners. And what more of a crazy-ass story to this crazy fast recovery than the Boston Celtics winning a championship? So, you wanted the stats, I gave you the stats. So, that I'm going to say fact. We have 3 caps, but I'm going to say this is a fact. They can definitely do it.
I don't think you believe that, though.
I mean, the Spurs aren't, the Thunder aren't healthy, Alex. Do you
No,
think the Thunder can do it?
Alex, I don't know why you're not just running with this right now. Like, he is supporting your team winning a championship. I'd be jumping for joy.
No, I get that. But I know deep down in Kevin James, I don't think he believes the Celtics can win, bro. And don't get me wrong, the Nuggets and the Thunder are injured, right? But Aaron Gordon he didn't just come back, but this is his first few games back from that hamstring. He played 28 minutes, he got 23 points. He was plus 14 on the court. So having Aaron Gordon changes the whole Nuggets offense. I mean, obviously Jokic is going to do Jokic numbers, triple-double, you know what I mean? Jamal Murray will get you 20 and hopefully almost 10 assists, but never really does because he doesn't really do very good passes. But anyway, I mean, the way the Denver is situated with their bench with Tim Hardaway, who got 28 points, by the way, who has Strother and Jones, who have been coming off the bench, giving you productive minutes. Valanciunas coming off being the backup for Jokic. I feel like they're in a good position. That's all I'm saying. The winner's coming out the West. But I will give props to the Celtics. I think they will make it to the finals. I just don't know. If they make it, if they need to win, I'm an all NBA first team, Jayson Tatum. And I don't know if we could get that from March to June. I don't know how the ramp up's going to be for him. So
all I'm saying, you get to the finals, I don't think there's a coach I trust more than Joe Mazzulla.
Oh,
Nuggets. This coach is not the Nuggets championship coach. What is he going to do in the playoffs? We saw the Thunder, but I'm not this guy. But there's a lot of guys that think if Tyrese doesn't go down, they lose.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Oh, they do. They do lose.
Are we going to trust the Spurs in the first time go round? The only person on that team with experience is Luke Cornett and De'Aaron Fox. So, I mean, there's a lot more question marks in the West than there are in the East. Yes, the better teams are in the West, but there's a lot more question marks because before Jayson Tatum, that was the only question.
I just feel like if I'm the Spurs and if I got to play against the Denver Nuggets and OKC and probably maybe I have to go against the Timberwolves, the Lakers, you're going through a hard-ass Western Conference. Going up against the Boston Celtics is nothing, in my very humble opinion. That's all I'm saying. If I got to go up against these giants, looking at the Boston Celtics, I'm like, if I already dealt with Joker and his triple doubles and his 50-point triple doubles already, you know what I mean? I dealt with Luka and his triple doubles. and his insane stat lines. Like, if I could deal with that, then I feel like the Boston Celtics is a little bit easier of a hill to climb. It's still a hill, but it ain't like I'm playing up against the top 3 players in the league, which is Shea, Luka, and Jokic. And you can add anyone else if you want to.
Well, just to play devil's advocate, and this is kind of going against my own point, but to support what Kevin is saying, is that when it comes to the Spurs, that's the one team that, yes, they have all the talent in the world, all the potential, but that experience is really important. And if it was the same exact Spurs roster, but with Greg Popovich 10 years ago, like Greg Popovich at his full state of mind, because we know that his health really has declined over the last couple of years with him having a stroke and everything else that happened. But if Greg Popovich is the head coach of this exact same roster, I feel much more confident in the Spurs playing the Celtics or whoever in the NBA Finals if they were to get there. And yes, Alex, it would be a gauntlet for whoever comes out of the West. But if it's the Thunder that are playing whoever comes out of the East, I'm going to lean towards the Thunder because of that experience factor. The Thunder last year, they went up against another team that didn't have experience in the Pacers. And so it was even when it came to that finals matchup in terms of experience. The Nuggets, to Kevin's point, they have Rick Adelman's son as the head coach now, not Michael Malone. And so how would he handle a NBA Finals situation? There's so many question marks that we all agree that we feel like the champion will come out of the West, but it ultimately comes down to matchups. And so if a matchup like the Spurs and Celtics happen, and by that point, Jayson Tatum has been back for 2 months, and he is pretty close to being back to the Jayson Tatum that we all know and love, then maybe the Celtics experience, Joe Mazzulla's experience, maybe that carries through. So it'll be interesting. I know that our guy Toddy is quite happy with hearing Kevin say that. But Kevin, share your other thought, and then we'll toss it to Keith before we move on to the NFL.
So before we head off, I know everyone said Cap, but let me ask you guys this. Is there a better coach in the NBA besides Joe Mazzulla, or is he the best coach in the NBA? What do you guys think?
I mean, to me, I'm still riding for Eric Spoelstra, even if the Heat aren't title contenders every year.
Okay, out of the contenders, out of the teams that we think that are contenders, is Joe Mazzulla not the best coach?
Yeah, he probably is. I think so.
You're talking the top 5 contenders. He's the best one by a mile. Most experience, most resume.
I
mean, but give credit to Mark Daigneault in OKC.
No, I mean, he's definitely too. But when it comes down to the nitty gritty, it starts at the top of the snake.
For sure. All right. Well, that does it for our NBA coverage on episode 184 of Stats Over Politics. And with that, we bid Alex adieu. Thank you for joining us as always. We appreciate you.
Appreciate you.
And
have a great night.
The one thing I will say too, as Alex exits, is that Kevin, Alex, and Toddy's West Campus Warriors, the girls basketball team, they won the Division IV section championship a couple weeks ago. And so the Warriors are back on top. And so congrats to the Dents and Jaevon and everyone that we know who went to West Campus. As we continue now here on episode 184 of Stats Over Politics, Shaun Holko alongside Kevin Dent and Keith Jouganatos. Guys, we got a few NFL topics, and we're going to start before free agency because the blockbuster move from the end of last week was the fact that Maxx Crosby got traded to the Baltimore Ravens. And below me on the panel, as far as the video goes, is none other than Mr. Keith Jouganatos, who is a diehard Pittsburgh Steelers fan. As we know, the Steelers have TJ Watt, the Browns have Myles Garrett, and suddenly Joe Burrow's life just got even harder. But
Bengals have a wish and a prayer.
Yeah. Well, that's the perspective for Joe Burrow. Keith, for you as a Steelers fan, what was your reaction to this news that Maxx Crosby is now in your division.
Contrary to popular belief, not everything revolves around the Steelers for me. Obviously, the Steelers are the Steelers. As an NFL fan, I thought it was a win-win situation. I thought the trade for Maxx Crosby to Baltimore is a win-win situation for both teams. And I'm going to get to both sides really quickly here. The Las Vegas Raiders obviously are in rebuild mode. They need as many assets as possible. The timeline with them and Max just wasn't going to work out. They were awful last year. They're probably going to be maybe semi-decent, best case scenario next year. But the Raiders now got to save $36 million in cap by moving Max, which they use, and we'll talk about that later, on a bunch of things. They still have the 14th overall pick. And with the signings today, now they can focus on another edge rusher, defensive tackle, maybe Peter Woods out of Clemson, the gentleman from Miami, Raekwon, not Ruben Bain, but I forget, Hakeem Mesidor. So they can focus on one of those two in the middle rounds, maybe trade up if they really see somebody they like that's in their grasp. So I like what the Raiders did because they need to rebuild. They need to get younger, and Max just wasn't going to fit the timeline. This is a slam dunk for the Ravens. The Ravens desperately needed another pass rusher. They have not had great pass rushing the last 2 years, borderline. I'll throw out a couple stats for you here. The last 4 years, the Baltimore Ravens have blown 16 fourth quarter leads. It is the highest percentage of anybody in the NFL. There's a gentleman in the top 5 as far as fourth quarter sacks, 22 and a half fourth quarter sacks the last 4 years. You want to take a guess who that is? It's Maxx Crosby. So in these games, and Baltimore obviously is one of those teams that they have visions of competing down the stretch, right? The most efficient and fast way to keep a fourth quarter lead in pro football is to get a big time sack artist on your defensive line. Maxx Crosby has not only been one of the most productive defensive linemen, pass rushers the last 5-6 years, he's been one of the most, I guess you could say, visible. He hasn't gotten hurt. He's been durable the last 4 to 5 years playing on the Raiders. He's played at least 80% of the snaps, I guess, on the stats. And what I like about this is that now the Ravens have a tier 1 performer, arguably, at every single level in the defense. You have Maxx Crosby on the defensive line. You got Roquan Smith in the middle. Kyle Hamilton is one of the premier safeties in pro football. So they've got 3 guys in that defense now with Jesse Minter as head coach, who they desperately needed to go get another pass rusher. And they can still go out in the draft, find somebody, work some stuff around. But they desperately needed somebody not only to get them in a position late in games, especially in the North, one of the most competitive divisions in football, but when they're playing Buffalo, and they don't have to blow a 20-point lead in the fourth, when they're playing Kansas City, who we'll get into later, and they'll be relevant again. Yes, they will. So the Ravens needed this not only for that, but they needed to show Lamar Jackson that they're serious and committed to winning. And I don't think they've shown Lamar that the last 2 to 3 years. You needed to do something after Harbaugh was shown the door. And if we want to link this to the Steelers, they should have been in no position to lose that final game at Acrisure Stadium. I like it for the Ravens. I like it for the Raiders. Maxx Crosby gets to move on. The Raiders now, they'll never be able to replace him, but they can start fresh, move on, flip the page, and focus on the identity that Clint Kubiak and them are trying to build.
Yeah, I'm personally really happy for Maxx Crosby because not only is he a excellent NFL player and has been for years, but he was kind of rotting away in Vegas because he's basically playing his prime with them trying to actively rebuild. And so I'm really happy for him in that regard. And also just looking at the end of his tenure with the Raiders, like they ruled him out for the last 2 games because they wanted to tank to get the first overall pick, which is going to become Fernando Mendoza. And then you had Maxx Crosby posting onto Instagram, him playing basketball, like showing my back is okay. Like I'm not really that hurt. They're just trying to keep me out so then we can tank to lose. And so it definitely needed to come to an end between the Raiders and Maxx Crosby. And it was a mutually beneficial relationship. But now he really has a chance to go and win. And the coolest thing about this trade to me is it happened like a little bit less than a week until the 6-year anniversary of Maxx Crosby's sobriety that he started like the day that the world shut down because Rudy Gobert was touching mics and spreading germs, and the NBA shut down on March 11th, 2020. I'll never forget because I went to the Kings and Pelicans game that night, and I was on my way to the game when the news dropped that the NBA season had been suspended, and I was like, do I still go to the game? I went to the game and they didn't even play the game. But all that to say, Maxx Crosby started his sobriety from alcohol and other drugs on March 11th, 2020. And that was when things took a turn for the worse for a lot of people. And so for him to take one of the hardest times in the entire world for a lot of people and to start a journey like he did, he should be commended. And I say that as someone who had an alcoholic father who my dad's not here anymore because of his own choices. And so anytime someone can make a dramatic change like that in their life, I'm really proud and happy for them. And so I wanted to just take a moment to recognize Maxx for that because it's a tremendous thing to do with your life. And now we've seen it pay dividends over the last 6 years. And now he truly gets to start a new journey with the Baltimore Ravens. Keith, did you want to say something real quickly before we pass it
One
to
more
Kevin?
thing, because that's what I was thinking off the top of my head. I'm real quick. One more thing. Maxx Crosby, 69.5 sacks since 2019. In that time frame, that's more than double what anyone on the Baltimore defensive line has produced. Just throwing that out there. So the more you know.
Damn. So, Kevin, I know for me personally, I was just happy that Maxx Crosby did not get traded to a team in the NFC. So I'm sure you had a pretty similar reaction that he stayed in the AFC. But overall, just how did you feel about this trade?
Yeah, so looking at both sides of the coin, like Keith did greatly, the Raiders now have 10 picks in the draft coming up. And this is the second draft under Tom Brady. So you have a winner like that who has an eye for talent. So it's going to be interesting to kind of see what they do there. I know we're all talking about Fernando Mendoza, but I wouldn't be surprised if they traded the first to the highest bidder and got more picks because, like Keith said, they're not a quarterback away. We saw with Ashton Genty. They weren't a running back away, and his stats looked like he played on a bad team. No O-line, no quarterback. They traded away their best receiver. So there's a lot of things that they still need to figure out in Vegas. But talking about Maxx Crosby to the Ravens, Maxx Crosby, if you're watching this, brother, I am so sorry. You went from one losing franchise to another losing franchise. Every offseason, we say, Lamar has no excuses. He got this. He got that. Is Maxx Crosby going to play receiver? Is he going to catch the football? Because the Ravens, to go to with Keith's point, they've given up so many double-digit leads. I mean, a lot of it has to go on Lamar Jackson. I know everyone's going to sit here and say, Kevin, Mark Andrews didn't catch the ball. If he doesn't fumble the ball twice and throw a pick, maybe Mark Andrews' drop doesn't mean anything. There's a lot of things that people can say about the Ravens, and, the Zay Flowers fumble, Lamar Jackson had multiple turnovers. He has more interceptions and turnovers in general than touchdowns. So you can get him Nami Asamoah, you can get him Ray Lewis, Terrell Suggs. If he doesn't take care of the football, this all means nothing. And every year we get him all these weapons, and he gets Derrick Henry, and we see all these changes. Now he has a whole new coach. So at some point we have to start looking at the quarterback, because that's all we talk about when the quarterback plays bad. That's all people drag this whole offseason is about CJ Stroud. Are the Texans even going to keep him? He's not a guy for 6 months that plays like an MVP and then turns into Bryce Young in the playoffs. You know what I mean? Like, obviously Bryce Young made the playoffs now, so I need to find a new name. But Lamar Jackson doesn't play the same way he does when it means everything. When it's win or go home. You held the Chiefs, the Dynasty Chiefs, to 10 points, and you can't win that game? I mean, I get it. Maxx Crosby, a game changer. He's like a Micah Parsons. He's a Myles Garrett. Like, he's going to change games. But it does not matter if Lamar Jackson is going to fumble or throw the ball to the other team. Like I said, he has more turnovers than touchdowns. That's a problem. When you're paying this guy to be all this, he's the only guy with 2 MVPs to not only not play in a Super Bowl, but win a Super Bowl. So we can give him all things in the world, but if Lamar Jackson does not play like MVP Lamar Jackson, it's pointless. And now you gave away a 2027 first round pick. That's a gold draft. So that's just doubling down that we think he can do it. So now he has to go out there and do it. And just like Keith said, the Chiefs are going to be back. So the boogeyman's here. What is he going to do?
This is where I throw out also, Shaun, one of the more under-talked about, discussed signings. Lamar Jackson's go-to safety blanket, post Mark Andrews' decline, Isaiah Likely is rumored to have signed a 3-year deal with the New York Giants. I'm just throwing that out there.
And now we just signed with the Raiders.
And we'll talk about all, but I'm just throwing that out there. I love Lamar, but that is, you cannot underestimate what Likely was. The guy who caught the ball before Luke missed the field goal, Isaiah Likely.
And Derrick Henry with the fumble problems, is what is he going to be now? So I mean, there's a lot of good things to say about this defense, but if Lamar's not putting up points, the defense can only hold him for so long.
Yeah, and to add on to the Isaiah Likely point, when I think about Isaiah Likely, I not only think about that incredible catch in the last regular season game of the season for the Ravens, or last game of the season, because that was it for them. But I also think back to week 1 of the 2024 NFL season in Kansas City against the Chiefs. And Isaiah Likely, we think that he is making that catch at the buzzer in the end zone. And as Keith is indicating for the audio-only listeners, he was like an inch too much as far as being out of bounds. And so that was unfortunate for him. And as we keep things moving here on episode 184 of Stats Over Politics, Shaun Holko alongside Kevin Dent and Keith Jouganatos wanted to highlight a couple of YouTube comments. As Gray Wolf says, as a Broncos fan, I'm happy I don't have to see Crosby twice a year now. And Uncle Manny thinks that Kevin was on fire with his point about the Baltimore Ravens. And so as we keep things moving, we got a couple more topics as it relates to the NFL. And now, guys, let's get to NFL free agency day 1. And this is the legal tampering period has officially opened, even though the contracts can't officially be signed yet. But it's the same thing that we see in the NBA July 1st at 8:59 p.m. or whatever it is. And that's Pacific Standard Time. Point is, the NFL free agency has started. Players are moving. Teams are making moves. And so I wanted to highlight, as I have a fly that has been flying around me for the entire podcast, and I've tried to kill it, but trying not to make a scene, but now it's flying in front of my face. Sorry for the audio-only listeners and for everyone, really, for getting distracted. I really tried to not. I wanted to get to a couple of my favorite moves, or a couple teams that have made some significant moves to start NFL free agency. And then we'll go around the panel and we'll hear from everyone just on things that stood out to them, because there are a lot of moves. We can't get to every single move. So we'll highlight the ones that stood out to each of us. You guys see the shirt, 49er faithful. And you know where I got to start. I got to start in the Bay, and I ain't talking Tampa, because Mike Evans, arguably one of the greatest wide receivers of all time. He's one of 2 players to have over 1,000 receiving yards in 11 consecutive seasons. I got Keith with that one, but I credit George Kittle for saying welcome to the Bay, and then Tampa fans got really upset with George Kittle for that. Mike Evans signs a 3-year contract with the San Francisco 49ers worth up to $60.4 million, according to Adam Schefter of ESPN. That wasn't the only move that the 49ers made today, as they signed Vidarian Lowe, an offensive tackle who was with the New England Patriots, the AFC champions. The 49ers signed him to a 2-year deal worth a max value of $12 million, $5.75 million guaranteed. So a move to try and protect Brock Purdy so then he can get the ball to Mike Evans, because it doesn't matter if we have Mike Evans if Brock Purdy is under pressure and he can't get the ball out to him, like we saw Brock Purdy running for his life the last time we saw him out on the gridiron against the Seattle Seahawks, who obviously went on to win the Super Bowl. The other move to highlight when it comes to the 49ers happened before free agency started, and this actually happened 2 days ago, and I was over the moon happy. I mean, I wasn't as excited, to be fair, as I was when I saw the news about Mike Evans today. Because when I saw the alert come across my phone, I literally was saying out loud, "Oh, oh, oh," like just like that. It was pretty obnoxious. I apologize to my neighbors, but I was pumped. This move really made me excited as well, and that was that the 49ers agreed to a deal with their kicker, Eddie Pinheiro, for a 4-year deal worth $17 million, $10 million guaranteed. This is significant because the 49ers, us fans, we were suffering with the Michigan man, Jake Moody, who was absolute cheeks, a bust of a 3rd-round pick. He tried to tell me this guy is amazing. He was terrible. And yet, go ahead.
Stop. Don't do that. Don't cap on facts and stats. We have never had one Jake Moody conversation. You have never texted me once about Jake Moody. Oh, Jake Moody's cheeks. Jake Moody's trash. Stop lying to yourself. Okay, he was bad. Everyone gets he's bad. But don't lie on your own podcast and imply that we've ever had a conversation about Jake Moody. Don't.
Sean's looking for the seats as we speak.
Yes, I literally.
You don't want me to bring
Moody.
up CJ Stroud last year in the playoffs, buddy. So
I Googled, or I didn't Google, but I searched in my messages just Moody, trying to find it. But then I remembered that I cleared all my text messages like 3-4 months ago. So
coincidentally, we don't have any Jake Moody files. There's no Jake Moody files.
I will take it on the chin. I'll take it on the chin. I wasn't able to pull any receipts on you, Keith. So I was wrong. Sorry. Nevertheless, he's a Michigan man. He represents you and his terrible kicks. Nevertheless, the 49ers got a guy in Eddie Pinheiro, who is absolute money, and now he gets paid, deservingly so, 4-year contract. So you're telling me that as a 49ers fan, I don't have to worry about my kicker for the next 4 years? That's amazing. Mike Evans, he was desperately needed. Yes, he's getting old. Yes, we're concerned about him with injuries. I know that's what every 49er pessimist will point out is, oh, Mike Evans is already on the injury report for the San Francisco 49ers. Oh, the substation already took Mike Evans' ACL. I've already heard enough today about it. It's not going to kill my joy. A future Hall of Famer is joining the 49ers. Brock Purdy has a new weapon. Now Ricky Pearsall, as Toddy would like to call him, white boy Rick, gets to go from having to be the number 1 receiver to getting to be a second receiver, and he can thrive when all the attention isn't on him. And we're really going to need the both of them when the season starts, because George Kittle is going to probably be out at least half of the season, if not for the entire regular season. And so
don't forget about Brandon Ayuk.
I forgot about Brandon Ayuk on purpose. I don't think it's even worth me wasting my breath when it comes to that man anymore. I saw something that one of my friends sent me recently that Brandon Ayuk apparently wasn't even doing his rehab. And that's what led to the falling out with the 49ers is he wasn't doing his rehab. He wasn't responding to them when they were contacting him because he was never at the facility. Brandon Ayuk, it's a shame because the guy went to Sierra College right up the street from us in Sacramento. And I was so happy. Man, I was so close to buying a Brandon Ayuk jersey 2 years ago, and then I didn't. And I'm so glad that I didn't because I would look at that jersey and shake my head. I'm really glad that I didn't get a Brandon Ayuk jersey. So I wanted to, as Grey Wolf says, Brandy Ayuk, never heard of her.
You should have let him wear those shorts, man. That was the downfall. When you didn't let him wear the shorts he wanted to wear, then he went that way.
Yeah,
the genius Kyle Shanahan wouldn't let him wear his favorite shorts.
Yeah, well, Grey Wolf's heart dropped hearing that Evans left Tampa Bay. My heart skipped a beat in another way because I was so happy. The other team that I wanted to highlight before we pass it around.
Evans, can I say something real quick?
Yes, please.
So there have been 3 receivers in NFL history at the age of 32 to go to a new team and have 1,000 yards. Randy Moss, Larry Fitzgerald, and Jerry Rice. So being 32 and switching teams, you're already up there in age. We've seen him coming off an injury-riddled season. You guys paid him until he's going to be 36. Congratulations. You guys, Adam Schefter said you guys were the only team to offer a 3-year deal because everyone else understands. And it ain't really looking too hot. He going to be a senior citizen. But, I'm an Eagles fan, so I had to throw spite whenever I could. So, you know what, Mike Evans? I guess we'll have to see. So, Shaun, please continue.
Hey, well, I appreciate you mentioning that stat because that makes me feel even better about the deal. And, I think it was just over a year ago. It was during the NFL offseason. But, Kevin, you, myself, and Jaevon were talking about when George Kittle got his extension and the fact that George Kittle was going to be under contract till he was like 36 or 37. It's obviously he's injured now. That's very unfortunate, but seem to be working out so far. So I hope that's the case for Mike Evans as well. The other team that I wanted to highlight real quickly before we pass it around the panel to hear everyone else's thoughts on things that stood out to them, the Las Vegas Raiders. We were just talking about how they traded away their amazing talent in Maxx Crosby, and they got 2 first-round picks, which is huge, but they also cleared a lot of money that they had committed to Maxx Crosby, and they have been spending that money very, very quickly. Adam Schefter summed it up perfectly to where I can just read it off as a quick list. Starting off with center Tyler Linderbaum, who we were talking about is no longer on the Ravens. He got a 3-year deal worth $81 million. They are paying an offensive lineman $27 million a year, but it's because he was the best center on the market, and they're going to be drafting a quarterback number 1. They want to protect him to try and protect their investment, but also give him the best chance to succeed from day one. And now they got Tyler Linderbaum. So that's a great signing. You also look, the Raiders got linebacker Quay Walker, 3-year, $40.5 million contract. Another linebacker, Nakobe Dean from the Eagles, 3 years, $36 million. It hurts Kevin's heart, but I know it made Kevin happy when Nakobe Dean said it was between the Raiders and the Cowboys. And he said, I'm going with my gut. I'm going with the Raiders. As Kevin said in our group chat, he said, fuck the Cowboys. The Raiders also got wide receiver Jalen Naylor. You know him as a Minnesota Viking. 3 years, $35 million. Kwity Paye, 3 years, $48 million. Quarterback Eric Stokes, 3 years, $30 million. That's a re-signing for the Raiders as he was already in Las Vegas. They got defensive end Malcolm Kuntz, 1 year, $11 million deal. But this last one on the list is what stood out to me the most from Sheldon High School, Keith. None other than Taron Johnson, cornerback who has been underrated for years on the Buffalo Bills. He is your favorite NFL player's favorite NFL player because those who know ball know how good Taron Johnson has been on the Buffalo Bills for years. He went from Sheldon High School to Weber State to the Buffalo Bills. Now he's back on the West Coast with the Las Vegas Raiders as they traded for him today. That's like Linderbaum will stand out. The 2 linebackers getting signed, that's noteworthy. But Taron Johnson ending up on the Raiders and also pairing him with Eric Stokes, who performed well for the Raiders, for them to want to re-sign him, that really stands out to me, and we'll see how it translates on the field. But for the Raiders to get 2 first-round picks for Maxx Crosby, and then in turn to take that money that they saved from trading away a generational talent and to spread it out the way that they have, I'm impressed. So those are the 2 teams that stand out to me. My bias with the San Francisco 49ers, but the Raiders, they are making moves. So, Kevin, I'm going to toss it to you next. Which moves have stood out to you from day one of NFL free agency and why? And I'm going to step away for a moment just to use the bathroom, but please let us know what stood out to you, Kevin.
So from a team standpoint, Keith, you got to talk about the Tennessee Titans. Robert Saleh is new on the job. Chris Daboll is new on the job. And they said, we're not going to be the team of last year. So they are filling out this roster very well. Bringing in Wan'Dale Robinson, 4 years, $70 million. John Franklin Myers is a very underrated defensive player. He is going to have a huge impact on this team. They got Daniel Bellinger back. They got Cornell Flott, and they got Lante Taylor. So they are building this team around Cam Ward. We saw Cam Ward struggle last year. Everyone had real high expectations for Cam Ward. But when your starting receiver, Calvin Ridley, just kind of falls off the map, you really don't have anyone else throwing the ball to. So for you guys to bring in a guy like Wanda Robinson, who just had his best year of his career with Dayball, says a lot. And they still have the 4th overall pick. They can get a Jeremiah Love. They can go get him a Carnell Tate, Makai Lemon, Jordan Tyson, whatever you like. They can still go out there and either put more money into this offense, because when you have a quarterback on a rookie deal, that is the perfect time, to put weapons around him, because he's cheap and they're not expensive. So Robert Saleh is ready to change the momentum in Tennessee. And another move I wanted to talk about, it happened 2 days ago, I believe, when the Los Angeles Rams traded for Trent McDuffie. Trent McDuffie on the Los Angeles Rams have made it very serious that we are back to the fuck them picks era. We don't care. And I get it. They still have the Falcons 1st round pick. So maybe if they didn't have that pick, this move doesn't be made. But the Kansas City Chiefs are under the impression that we need more talent. Yes, we can sign you, but we need more talent. So not only did the Rams give up a 1st, a 3rd, and a 4th, they also made him the highest paid corner in the NFL. So the Rams are saying, essentially, for the past 2 years, we've been a top 3 team in the NFL every year, and we haven't been to the bowl. We played the Eagles. We lost in a snow game. We lost to the Seahawks. Our punt returner muffed the punt. A couple of plays here and there, and we're talking about the Rams being in the Super Bowl for the past 2 years. And another one that I want to talk about, I'm not a big Alec Pierce guy, but I had him on fantasy this year, so I was paying a lot of attention. And he deserved that payday, because from the Anthony Richardsons to the Daniel Jones to the who did they bring in? Who else did they bring from the Chargers? His name is skipping my head. Phillip Rivers. They bring in Phillip Rivers. So they have all different kinds of quarterbacks, and the one productive guy that stayed around because Jonathan Taylor really fell off was Alec Pierce. So I know he was going to be a top guy in the market. So for him to get that kind of payday, and the Colts today saying, Michael Pittman, you're gone. We are going to pour into your cup, Alec Pierce. You are going to be the number 1 wide receiver on this team. So the Tennessee Titans made a lot of good moves. I love what the Rams did. And then I wanted to shout out Alec Pierce because he deserved all bit of that $100 million.
Yeah, and one thing I'll add real quickly before we hear from Keith is Smoove is in the YouTube comments saying lots of movement happening. I completely agree. And Uncle Manny says Rams are all in with the Super Bowl at home and Stafford getting old. And a lot of people could argue that the Rams were the best team in the NFL from this past season. They just lost to the Seattle Seahawks, not once, but twice. They did get them once at home, but the 2 times that they played them in Seattle, they lost. And we think back to that crazy Thursday night football game when Zach Charbonnet is picking up what we thought was an incomplete pass, but it ended up being a fumble, turns into a 2-point conversion. That ultimately determined who got the number 1 seed in the NFC. And a lot of people could argue if that game was in LA, then the Rams win that game. They go to the Super Bowl. They win the Super Bowl. So the Rams, as you said, Kevin, they are all in on the fuck them picks approach. And one thing I wanted to say real quickly, since you mentioned Alec Pierce, I don't know if you guys saw the way that news was announced, but he announced it, or he gave the scoop to Pat McAfee, and Pat McAfee broke the news at the very beginning of his NFL free agency spectacular special that they were having on ESPN this morning. And McAfee did his intros. Then he was like, we got a deal to announce. He announced the Alec Pierce news, which is cool because obviously he's a former Colt. He does his show from Indianapolis. And then for them to break a local story to start was pretty cool. And then they had Alec on for like 5 minutes just to talk about why he decided to go back to the Colts. So that was really cool. And as you said, Kevin, well-deserved. Keith, the K names are getting me today. But Keith, what was the deals that stood out to you the most from day one in NFL free agency?
I'm going to double down on the Raiders. I thought the Raiders played today maybe as perfectly as you could with the money that they saved by trading Maxx Crosby. So, for starters, we're going to draft Fernando Mendoza, number 1 overall. We do not want our franchise quarterback, hopefully of the next 10, 15 years of the future, getting beat up. We've seen that happen time and time again. We want to set Fernando Mendoza up for success in the long run. So what do? We go out and get, without a doubt, the best center on the market in Tyler Linderbaum. We throw plenty of cash at him. Tyler Linderbaum, among all centers in the National Football League, a 96.2 pass block win ratio. The only center in the NFL who has a higher pass block win ratio than Tyler Linderbaum is Creed Humphrey of the Kansas City Chiefs. So good company right there. Then we go out and address our next biggest weakest weakest link, aside from the offensive line, because we're going to spend at least 1 or 2 picks on the O-line in April. We go out on the defensive side of the ball. We go out and get a number of guys that have a high risk potential or high reward potential, I should say. For starters, we go out and take a chance on Kwity Paye. Kwity Paye had a down year last year, okay? But between 23 and 24, he had 16 and a half combined sacks. That's a guy that if you put him in the right system, he could pop. We go out and get Nakobe Dean, who was a vital role player in the Eagles defense. And then one of the more underrated moves, and shout out to Taron Johnson from Sheldon High School, we all stick together. They go out and get Jalen Nailor, speedster at wide receiver. Jalen Nailor started 15 games last year. You talk about durability because Justin Jefferson was hurt. Jalen Nailor filled in. He was a vital part of the Vikings passing game, which wasn't saying a whole lot because they didn't have a really big passing game, but he was a speedster. You throw him in the slot. Now maybe we can play with some options like Kevin alluded to earlier on. We can go out and get maybe Jordan Tyson with one of those second first-round picks, a guy that a lot of people are high on, or Mekhi Lemon, who everyone said, yeah, he had a bad interview. I'm not really concerned with interviews in the National Football League. I'm concerned with talent. Mekhi Lemon is a speedster. He can beat you deep. That is what I like to see. So maybe they go out and take a chance on Mekhi Lemon. And I like the move for Quay Walker. Career high, 128 tackles last season. Only the second Packer since 75 to record at least 100 tackles in each of his first 4 seasons. We'll throw some money at him as well. So again, I like what the Raiders did because the Raiders went in. They said, listen, we've got to throw some money around. We've got to get Fernando Mendoza in a position to be successful. How do we do that? We go and address the offensive line. We go out and get Linderbaum. We go out and get a guy like Jalen Nailor, who could be like a really good guy in the slot, speedster. Okay, we've still got Brock Bowers. We still got Michael Mayer at tight end. And underrated stat here. Ravens, for all the talk about Derrick Henry and the running game was obsolete, 156 rushing yard average last year, second in the National Football League. You don't think that doesn't bode well for Ashton Genty? So again, I like what the Raiders did. I like what Clint Kubiak and Tom Brady did. They obviously had a plan going into day one. They knew what they needed to address. They knew that they had to emphasize the offensive line because all you've heard for the last 4 or 5 months leading up to the draft is Raiders have a horrible offensive line. Fernando Mendoza, why would you want to go there? You're going to get killed. They go out and get the best center without a doubt on the market. They address that. I will also throw out another AFC West team, and that is the Kansas City Chiefs. They threw a ton of money at Kenneth Walker. Now, K9 has had some injury problems in the past as Grey Wolf throws out there 3 years, $43 million. Travis Etienne went to the same. That's a good move for them. But I like Kenneth Walker on the Chiefs because the Chiefs have established the last 2 or 3 years the running game. Now, it's imperative that Pacheco, we talked about this a little bit in our group chat earlier, Shaun. Pacheco has not been healthy, but he's been dominant when he has been healthy. And so what you saw in Seattle with a guy like Charbonnet before he tore the ACL in the playoffs against your Niners and Kenneth Walker was that they were running a roughshod on everybody. So if you can get like 8 or 9 quality games for Pacheco, you pair him up with Kenneth Walker, that's a good tandem. And I do think they had to throw some money at Travis Kelce on the way out. He's been their guy for years. They had to give him the last dance treatment. That was just going to happen. But they're going to have to rely on the running game because you don't know when Mahomes is going to be back. You don't know what Mahomes is going to be like when he comes back off the rip. So let's go and establish the running game. We're getting everybody back. Rashee Rice in trouble again. But I like what the Chiefs did. I will say this also real quick about the Niners. Mike Evans was hurt last year. For the last 3 years, Shaun, play devil's advocate, Mike Evans has not had a full season of football the last 3 years. However, last time we saw Mike Evans on a football field, 132 receiving yards. Just throwing that out there. And again, if Mike Evans can go deep 2 or 3 times a game, flip the field position, when have we seen Brock Purdy at his best? When he had a guy like Brandon Ayuk, who was stretching the field when he wanted to be there, But when he had a guy like Brandon Ayuk stretching the field, stretching the terrain, we open it up for Pearsall in the slot to get loose. We don't know when George is going to get back. I'm still high on Jake Tonges or Tongs. I like what he did in the time that he was there. He could be a serviceable tight end. So the Niners obviously are banking on something we don't know. Either they were able to get a physical on Mike Evans and thought this was going to check out. But in general, love what the Raiders did. I like what the 49ers did. And I also like the fact that the Chiefs went out there, got Kenneth Walker. But I also do like the fact that my guy Taron Johnson got paid. We got to shout him out. So, hey, a great day for the Raiders. Great day for the Chiefs, in my opinion. Decent day for the Niners, but they're not done yet. I could see the Niners trading some picks around. I think the Niners are going to work their way up to the middle of the first round, try to find one of those guys. You never know. A guy like Sonny Styles or Caleb Downs, whatever reason, slips. The Niners could get active. Could get active.
Hell no, Keith. Let's not do this.
Could get active.
Oh,
you never know.
Yes.
Two questions to you guys. Shaun, is Brock Purdy going to give up number 13?
Oh, hell no. No, unfortunately, no.
So I was
no, he's
Twitter,
not.
And they were talking about how much he'd have to pay. And some guy responds, he's fucking Brock Purdy. This isn't Tom Brady. Like, he'll give the number up. And I thought about it. I was like, 15 is open. That's what he wore at Iowa State. But I don't see Mike Evans wearing another number.
Yeah, Jaevon Jennings likely will not be returning to the Niners. We saw that Kendrick Bourne signed with our division rival, the Arizona Cardinals. Jaevon Jennings, I hope he doesn't sign with a division rival, but he likely will not be back with the 49ers. So that would open up 15, which I believe 15 was not available because Jaevon Jennings had it when Brock Purdy came out of Iowa State. But I really wish that I remember who said this. It might have been Peter Schrager or Dan Orlovsky on the McAfee special, but I really wish I remember who said it, but I'm just going to repeat what they said is that Brock Purdy, he's not a Super Bowl winner. Yeah, he's not a Hall of Famer yet, but Brock Purdy does carry with him in his short NFL career a pretty damn cool story, being Mr. Irrelevant and coming into the league and having the success that he has. And the fact that he's the starting quarterback of the San Francisco 49ers and 16 is already locked up with the 49ers. I get your point, Kevin, about 15, but 16 is already locked up. That's Joe Montana. 8, that's already locked up. That's Steve Young. You could even throw... no, I'm not even. I was going to mention Alex Smith's name. No, I'm not going to put him in that category. But the overall point being is that I feel like Brock Purdy has started to build a legacy with number 13. Mike Evans has had a legacy as number 13 at Texas A&M and then with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, but he's on a new team now. And just like we saw, Kevin flashed the jersey. We saw LeBron go from number 23 with the Cleveland Cavaliers and the great things that he did as a Cav to becoming, what was it? What did they refer to him as when he went to Miami with number 6? Because I know Gilbert Arenas was Agent 0. What was LeBron? It was something with number 6. Anyways, point being is that LeBron became number 6 because he went to a new place. And then when he went back to Cleveland, he went back to being number 23. Then he went to LA and he changed his number again. I feel like Mike Evans should change his number. You could just make Mike Evans number 3. That works too. And so I don't think that Brock Purdy should change his number. But the thing that I heard, what's up?
This brings up a good concept, which is that as we've gone on here, and I like Brock Purdy, you know that. The first couple of years, Kev, you bring this up. This is a good elephant in the room. Brock Purdy really has just drove in the bus, right? George Kittle, Ayuk, Debo, CMC. Now, as we're starting to get towards the back end of this window for the Niners, you've seen Warner get hurt, Bosa get hurt. You've seen new guys come in like Pearsall and Mason earlier on when they had him. Now, we're going to get to see Brock Purdy, I think, especially starting this year with Kittle out, CMC on the back end of the career, really take the reins as a leader, which I'm excited to see. This arguably could be officially the year that Brock Purdy becomes a leader in that locker room. He already probably is a leader, but he becomes the sole leader of the Niners. And it'll be interesting to see how he handles that jersey thing. It's a weird thing, But I really am interested to see how Brock Purdy handles the new guys coming in and starts to form what Kyle and them have been trying to build on as he takes over that main leadership role.
And one other thing that I wanted to add on top of that, and Kevin, I believe you have one other question that you wanted to ask, but before you do, I wanted to add on to this report came out on March 1st, so 8 days ago, just over a week. But Jeremy Fowler of ESPN, who we know he is tapped in and locked in when it comes to all things football.
Steelers old report. They got to start.
Yes, but before he became a Steelers reporter for ESPN, he worked for newspapers in Florida. And so that's why he is tapped in and locked in when it comes to all things football and professional football in the state of Florida. So Jeremy Fowler came out with this report 8 days ago when it came to Mike Evans' criteria for his next team. Obviously, the 49ers checked all these boxes because they are the team he chose. Number one, a QB he believes in. That's important. And regarding a QB he believes in, if he believes in Brock Purdy enough to leave the only place he's ever known in the NFL, then maybe he's not going to make a big deal out of a number. Number two, and I'm waiting to see the reactions from you guys on the screen to me reading this out loud. Chance at a Super Bowl. I think the 49ers present him with a great chance at a Super Bowl. Whether it comes to them winning a Super Bowl and just getting there.
You think he already has a ring?
Yes, he sure does. And that was the thing, too, is on ESPN, people were saying, like, oh, he's ring chasing. And it's like, well, he already has a ring. That's usually associated with someone who doesn't have a ring. He also is looking for a top shelf offensive coordinator. I mean, Kyle Shanahan is the head coach calling the plays, so you could consider him the top shelf offensive coordinator. The fourth and final thing is a promise of high volume touches. That means I'm taking Mike Evans with my first or second overall pick in fantasy because he's going to be getting 10 receptions a game.
You got to be on the field to do that.
Also keep in mind, what is Brock Purdy's strength when he's on? Obviously, when Brock has struggled, the pocket collapses on him, defense beats him up. However, though, when Brock Purdy is on his game, his best trait, he can put the football where it needs to be. Accuracy is Brock's name of the game. And you combine that with a physical, tall receiver like Mike Evans. If you throw it in Mike Evans' vicinity, it's not on the level of Randy Moss, right? That's the best we've seen high point in the football. But Kevin, don't look at me like that. When you throw the ball in Mike Evans' vicinity, we've seen more often than not, there is a chance he's going to come down with it.
Hey, I'm all for it. Kevin, did you have another question that you wanted to ask?
Yes, and it leads us into our last segment of the day. We saw Sam Darnold in the free agency window get picked up pretty quickly. We saw Tua get picked up hours after getting released, and they signed Malik Willis. So they said, hey, clean out your locker. The new guy's coming in at noon. So let's get this thing rolling. A guy that I am confused, we have not heard his name yet, is Kyler Murray. So, Keith, I'm going to swing it to you first. Factor cap. Tua Tagovailoa is better than Kyler Murray. Kyler Murray is still yet to be signed, and Tua was on the market for 20 minutes. So, what do you think?
I think both of them have their deficiencies, right? Like with Tua, the best ability is the ability to stay on the field or floor in any sport, basketball, baseball, football. And with Tua, obviously, that has been not even a question. That's been a fact. He cannot stay on the football field. Also, you're signing a guy who has at least 4 reported concussions in his career, a broken hip, broken nose in college. So Tua scares me from the point that if it was another team, but again, Tua Tagovailoa, the arm strength is not good. He cannot see over the offensive line, and that's not a joke. That's like he literally cannot see, which hinders his ability to find guys over the middle, hit the deep ball. And for me, if I'm the Atlanta, I don't know what the Atlanta Falcons are doing. Because my thought is, if you were going to find a backup quarterback, because the whole thing revolves around this concept that allegedly they are committed to Michael Penix. But at the same time, it's like, okay, if you needed a quality backup, why would you not go out and get Kirk Cousins, a guy who has been in the system, who can give you at least quality 4 to 5 games. Because if there's one thing Kirk Cousins is going to do, he's going to give you 4 to 5 decent games where you can put your defense in a position to go win the football game. But this is the Atlanta Falcons we were talking about, so it does not surprise me. But I don't know why they would take a flyer on Tua. Now to Kyler. I am not a Kyler fan. I have never been a Kyler fan. And the reason I have not been a fan of Kyler is because I have always felt like from afar, early on in his career, it's kind of like the Allen Iverson complex, right? When AI was at his peak, Allen Iverson was known notoriously for, we talk about practice. I don't need to practice like that. It's God-given ability. And it worked until the ability left. And then it was just, it went. Kyler, I look at from afar, and I think ACL tear a couple of years back, has never been a guy that can read progressions, studies defenses, is more interested seemingly in the COD. And so for me, if I'm an NFL team, you know, the NFL is tapped in. Like, word gets around fast. These teams go to Indianapolis for the combine, and they're not talking about politics or what food you're going to eat afterwards. They're talking about football. And so there's a reason that Kyler Murray is not sought after. Not a great teammate by a lot of sources. All about himself. And just seemingly the things you want in a quarterback. Size, I'm sorry, he don't got it. Ability to read the defenses, he don't want it. Ability to focus on the game, take my ego, set it aside for the better of the team, I haven't seen it. So I would be hesitant to take a flyer on Kyler because the athleticism has dwindled. He cannot read the field. He doesn't want to put the time in. And the underrated thing about Sam is people look at Sam Darnold from afar and say, well, Sam got with the right coach and the right offensive coordinator, and he had a running game, and he had JSN peaking at the right time, and he had AJ so-and-so. That's true. But Sam Darnold has also put the work in. He studied, Shaun, under Kyle Shanahan. He got better. He was able to look at it from afar. I don't know if you can get that from Kyler, not only at this stage in his career, but ever. And so the ability for Kyler to be a backup and process things, I just don't think that's in his DNA. You'll get that from Tua. That's for sure, because Tua is as mild-mannered and as humble as they come. Obviously, the physical traits and the resume speaks for itself. He's been banged up, but I can trust Tua to hold a clipboard and be a backup because at least I know he's humble enough to do so. I don't know if Kyler's ego has the ability to take a step back, and maybe that's why you don't see anybody clamoring for Kyler Murray, the defense rest.
Damn, that was good. I don't even know if we should have went to you last. I don't even know what to say. So, all right, Shaun, I'm going to swing it to you next. Fact or cap, Tua is better than Kyler Murray.
Yeah, that was amazing. When I saw this topic, I felt very strongly one way, and like Keith is very quickly convincing me another way. But to answer your question, I think that this is cap. We talked about this in our Stats Over Politics fantasy football group chat, and you and I agreed on this right away, Kevin. Like, I'm taking Kyler over Tua all day, every day. Partially, it has to do with the fact that Tua is one concussion away from not only being out of the NFL, but like his quality of life is questionable. And so that is the biggest reason why I will take. Keith just presented so many good arguments, and I mean, everything that Keith just laid out right now, like, it really has me questioning my opinion. But given the fact that Tua could take one bad hit and he is done from the NFL, and like I said, his quality of life may not be the same after that. That concerns me. That scares me. When Tua took that hit on Thursday Night Football and he's like trying to just move his fingers, and like that was a rattling image. When it comes to overall ability, Tua to me just has not been very consistent throughout the NFL. And I know Kyler's had a rough last couple years, especially this past season when Jacoby Brissett took over for him and Kyler never got the job back. Like, that's clearly a red flag. Arizona is starting a new regime, and so they just want to move on from Kyler. But when you look at all the quarterbacks that are available, like, everyone was talking about Malik Willis being the belle of the ball, and now he's a Miami Dolphin following some of the Packers brass that just went down there. But I'm taking Kyler over Malik Willis personally, and so I just don't trust Tua anymore. Like, if you ask, it's crazy just when we see guys come out of college and their potential is just through the roof. I mean, Kyler was a Heisman Trophy winner. Tua won multiple national championships. He was great in his own right. But the way that things have gone in the NFL, I've at least seen flashes from Kyler. I've seen more flashes from Kyler than I have from Tua. And so, to me, this is cap. I'm taking Kyler over Tua at least 9 times out of 10. But Keith really started to convince me there. And I just wanted to highlight one YouTube comment real quickly before I pass the mic. As Grey Wolf says, Kyler better head over to the MLB. Let's not forget, Kyler was a top 10 pick in the NFL draft and the MLB draft. He went number 1 overall to the Arizona Cardinals, but he went 9th overall to my Oakland Athletics. And that was when they were still the Oakland Athletics. They still hold on to his rights that if he ever tried to go play baseball, he would be a member of the Oakland/West Sacramento/Las Vegas Athletics. And so, selfishly, as an A's fan who saw his team, I mean, when the pick happened, I was excited because I love Kyler Murray as an athlete. But as an A's fan who saw his team waste a top 10 pick in the first round, I would love to see Kyler go play baseball, because then that pick isn't such a waste. But when it comes to when it comes to Kyler Murray or Tua Tagovailoa as far as quarterbacks, I'm going to take Kyler. And also, Curtis Knight says on YouTube, Hawk Tua as he's dead. That would have been even better if Tua ended up on the Seattle Seahawks rather than just the Falcons. But I'll leave that there, Kevin. Actually, Kevin, let me ask you, since you're answering this question now. Fact or cap? Tua Tagovailoa is better than Kyler Murray.
This is cap. I mean, Keith, you laid it out there perfectly. I'm going to keep it short and sweet. At Kyler Murray's ceiling, he was an MVP candidate. Excuse me. We talk about Trey McBride in such remarks because of Kyler Murray. People say that Trey McBride's the best tight end in football because of the guy throwing him the football. When he's healthy, this Cardinals team was in the playoffs. This team is in the NFC West, which is arguably the hardest division in football. The Dolphins went out there and got him a head coach. They got him Tyreek Hill. They got him a defense. They got Devon Achane. They put a lot around Tua, and he still wasn't successful. I think we all believe, well, maybe not Keith, if the role were reversed, Kyler would have led that Dolphins team further than Tua. So I'm going to say Kyler Murray is the better quarterback, and I am baffled that he was not signed today, because we talk about coaches. We saw what Kevin O'Connell did with Sam Darnold. Imagine what he would do with Kyler Murray. Kyler Murray still can play. It's hard to play when you play the Niners twice, when you play the Seahawks twice, when you play the Rams twice. That's damn near 5 losses. You might get 1. And we talked about draft picks. I'm a big believer in Marvin Harrison. I think he's very, very good at football. They got Wilson this year, so they're slowly trying to figure this out. But Kyler Murray never got a chance. He's been through how many head coaches? He's been through, I mean, when I say he's never got a chance, that might have been wrong, Keith. The front office didn't say, let's get you Tyreek Hill. Let's get you an elite play caller in Mike McDaniel. Kyler Murray has had a window of coaches, a window of GMs. He never really had the same shot as Tua. So now that they're both sitting at the same starting point, for people to say that Kyler is worse than Tua, it's kind of crazy, because there was a season where we thought Kyler Kyler Murray was the MVP.
Sorry about
We've
that.
never seen Tua play at an MVP level. And having a Tyreek Hill fresh off a 2 Super Bowls with the Chiefs, Jalen Waddle is surging. That's when they had, Devon Achane. Like, he's had a lot of weapons. Yes, Trey McBride's very good. Yes, Marvin Harrison is very, very good. He's not Tyreek Hill. James Conner is not Devon Achane. They had Cliff Kingsbury. They've had a bunch of different OCs for a reason. It's organizational failure. So I'm going to sit here and say Kyler Murray is better than Tua, and I think when they both get a fresh start, this will come to light.
And keep in mind also, Kyler's best year, and his name forgets me, offensive coordinator for the Commanders, Shaun.
Cliff Kingsbury, who's now with the Rams?
Yes. So Kyler's best year with Cliff Kingsbury. Everyone's talking about, oh, this is perfect. Kyler's with an offensive-minded coach. He's going to unlock him. Within a year and a half, Kyler had thrown him out of the building. So I get that Kyler's had help, but the more alarming thing to me is the fact that Kyler had an offensive mind in the building, and he didn't want no help. Oh, you see him on the sideline screaming, yelling. At the end of the day, Kyler has shown, based off the last 4 to 5 years, I want to do my own thing. It's my way. You can get away with that as a quarterback sometimes when you're performing. When you don't perform, we don't want to hear from you. You're irrelevant. You're irrelevant in that situation. So again, Kyler Murray, if I was him, I would swallow my pride. I'd take a second backup job, maybe even third string backup job, and I'd learn the position. You have no choice. You have no choice.
He can go to Minnesota. What are you talking about?
He can go to Cleveland.
I don't think
you can't name
Minnesota.
You can't name 31 quarterbacks better than Kyler Murray.
I don't think Minnesota is going to take a flyer because if I'm Kevin O'Connell, I already have an undersized quarterback in J.J. McCarthy. This has not worked out.
He's trash.
Listen, the NFL has gone away. There was this revolution with Russell Wilson. I blame Russell Wilson for a lot of this because Russell Wilson convinced teams that a guy 6 foot and under could play the quarterback position. Now, in some case, like Drew Brees and Russell Wilson, that's just talent. That's just what it is. But at the end of the day, that's not everybody. And Kyler's had his moments. He's talented. But I think Kyler's gotten in his own way on too many occasions. You're coming off the ACL tear. You don't want to listen to anybody. No one's going to put up with that. And I think it's good for him maybe to just take a year, process everything, relearn the position. When your time comes, get in there, execute. But I am not shocked there's no market for Kyler. I really am not. I'm not surprised.
Well, Keith, the point that I want to make about the Minnesota Vikings and O'Connell is the fact that the Indianapolis Colts, they put Anthony Richardson out on the market and they said he is available for trade. And a lot of people were bringing up the clip of Kevin O'Connell talking to Anthony Richardson after a game a couple years ago, just saying like, hey, man, keep your head in it. You got the talent. You're going to be great. And he obviously believes in him. But if I'm Kevin O'Connell, I would rather take a shot at Kyler Murray, who's proven he can play in the NFL, versus an Anthony Richardson who he's just gotten hurt and his cardio hasn't been there. And so he had to sub himself out of the game. Like there is a opening in Minnesota. We have established J.J. McCarthy is not that guy. You can even admit that, Keith, as a Michigan man. And so there's an opening in Minnesota, and I feel like Kyler is the perfect player to plug in there.
The problem with Minnesota that you have, number one, is like obviously the elephant in the room. They had Daniel Jones and they had Sam Darnold in their quarterback room. They've got neither of those guys, albeit from their GM or whatever. But I think if I'm Minnesota, number one, if it's last case scenario, they'll probably take a flyer on Kyler. I think they're leaning towards getting a veteran guy in there and trying to at least, like Kevin O'Connell came out at the combine and said, we want to make it a competitive situation. And he's got to say all the right things because obviously McCarthy's still on the roster and it's been a just awful situation all around for them. hitching their wagons to him being the guy. But he said on the record, we've got to make the situation competitive. That's part of the growth. So I really think they'll go after a veteran. I don't know who they're going to get at this point. They might take a flyer on Kirk. You never know. But I would not want to be a Minnesota Vikings fan right now. There's not one quarterback in my mind beyond Mendoza. I don't know what the market's going to look like for Ty Simpson coming into this draft. Ty Simpson could be a middle bottom tier first round guy. He could go as high as 15 maybe to a team like I don't know how far. I don't know what the Steelers pick is, but maybe go to a team like the Steelers that needs a quarterback for the future, or he could fall in the middle rounds. Yeah. Well, I like Will Howard, but again, there's not one quarterback in this draft in my mind. Everyone has their different opinions, but there's not one quarterback in this draft like beyond Fernando Mendoza that I think could have the capability of being a quality franchise guy. So you've got to look at the market. And to your point, while I don't think Kyler is going to attract the market, which he hasn't, Minnesota might be in a position where it's just like, we have no choice. We've got to at least take a flyer, see what we got in the situation. But hey, again, you're going into a team with Justin Jefferson. That's not a bad situation to be in, you know?
Yeah, well, I believe it was DeAndre Hopkins who was saying Kyler with Jettas. That would be nice. So we shall see. And as we wrap things up here on episode 184 of Stats Over Politics, I want to highlight a couple more comments. I see you, martial artist, in the YouTube comments trolling over there. I'm not going to highlight your comments, but I see you, as you know I do. Apparently Keith is Jewish now. I'm the one who has Jewish ancestors, but apparently you're the one who's ducking him in his troll takes. But I just wanted to highlight a couple comments that deserve to be displayed, and we appreciate Uncle Manny for the kind words as he says, Keith with some awesome takes. You guys are really killing it today. Thanks for an amazing show. We appreciate you, Uncle Manny. Thank you for always tuning in. And that's going to do it for episode 184. But before we get out of here, any closing thoughts, Kevin?
Like always, ladies and gentlemen, go Birds. Didn't do anything in free agency today. Hopefully we're getting this Jalen Carter extension any day now. And making it all worth it. So we lost a lot of guys, but I'm looking forward to the money we're going to pay to our young guys.
Keith, any closing thoughts?
Time you see me on this podcast, it could be next week, it could be next month, but I will have a microphone, and I always come on here and I enjoy it. Great times as always. We'll get some clips up on social media. I'll work my magic here, and love being on here. Love talking football. And they talk about the NBA as a 365 year-round sport. NFL, it's getting there. Great day of free agency. Lots to discuss for all the football fans. Great show as always. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for
Appreciate
coming.
you joining us as always, Keith. So that's going to do it for episode 184 of Stats Over Politics. Make sure to give us a like on YouTube. It helps us a lot. And if you enjoyed the podcast, hit subscribe to get notifications when we go live. You can follow us on Instagram and TikTok at Stats Over Politics and on X at Stats or Politics. Make sure to subscribe, rate, and review on all podcast platforms. And if you're enjoying the show, give us those 5 stars. We'd really appreciate it. As you guys have been tuned in to episode number 184 of Stats Over Politics. For my guys, Jaevon, Toddy, Kevin Dent, Kaz Johnson, Alex Dent, Keith Jouganatos, and Gary Singh, I've been your host, Shaun Holko. Thank you for tuning in, and we will see you next week on another episode of Stats Over Politics. Peace.
Peace.